like you're sitting in the waiting room of life.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we all know the exact kind of room you're talking about.
Right. The fluorescent lights have that like low, irritating hum.
Uh-huh.
You're flipping through a frayed magazine from maybe 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and you're just constantly glancing up at this frosted glass window.
Just hoping someone is finally going to call your name.
Exactly. You're waiting for a grand sign. You're, waiting for someone to slide open the glass, look at your file, and finally give you permission to step through the door and actually succeed.
And we spend decades in that metaphorical chair. I mean, we operate under this really heavy assumption that the universe runs on a system of um, cosmic cues and permission slips.
Yeah.
There's this deeply ingrained belief that if we just sit quietly enough, or, maybe if we look visibly exhausted and miserable enough to prove we've paid our dues.
Right, like we've suffered enough.
Exactly. Then the universe will eventually call our number.
But what if there is no cue? What if the receptionist actually went home years ago and the door was unlocked the whole time?
Now that is the real question.
So today in this deep dive, we're exploring a radical philosophical paradigm shift. It's all about personal agency, the nature of wealth, and moving from this mindset of passive waiting to active, undeniable ownership.
And the source material we're examining today frames this entire shift in a way that, frankly, might catch you off guard.
Oh, for sure. It completely abandons typical, like, mystical or self-help language.
Yeah, there's no poetry here. It reimagines our relationship with the universe through strict legal and financial metaphors.
We're talking about audits, liquidity, ledgers, and deeds.
It replaces all the flowery stuff with contract law. And the mission of our analysis today is to decode this highly stylized, intense text and confront a really uncomfortable question.
Which is?
Have you been acting like a mere tenant in a universe where you actually hold the title deed?
Oof. That's a heavy question.
It is, because it forces a total reevaluation of how we view our daily struggles. I mean, if you hold the title, you don't pay rent.
Right, you own the property.
Exactly. But behaving like an owner requires dismantling, well, almost everything we've been taught about how to earn favor in life.
Yeah, and the first major hurdle the text identifies is deeply wired into our culture. We have to completely unlearn the assumption that the universe, or as this specific source uniquely refers to it, the Super King actually wants or needs us to struggle.
Yes, we have to rethink what the universe actually values, and it starts by dismantling what the author calls forensic demand.
Forensic demand. Let's unpack that.
So forensic demand is the text's term for humanity's obsession with calculating our spiritual or cosmic debt.
Like keeping score.
Right. It's the constant low-level anxiety of asking, what is demanded of me? What penalty must I pay to unlock a good life?
Do I need to suffer a little more before I'm allowed to be happy?
Exactly. And the source shatters this worldview by introducing a concept it calls the hunger clause.
Ah, the hunger clause. This is based on a specific, rather blunt quote from the text, right?
Yeah, where the Super King states, if I were hungry, I wouldn't tell you.
Which, when you first read that, it sounds almost dismissive. Like, okay, rude.
Right. It does sound harsh at first, but mechanically, it alters the entire foundation of how we interact with reality.
How so?
The author uses that statement to establish the absolute, infinite nature of divine supply. It means the universe is entirely self-sustaining. The Super King has no needs to negotiate with you.
Wow. Okay.
For thousands of years, humans have operated on a barter system with the cosmos. We subconsciously believe that if we sacrifice enough of our happiness or, if we endure enough poverty and pain, we are somehow feeding the universe.
And in return, it will owe us a reward.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. It's like you score an invitation to a billionaire's all-inclusive, limitless banquet.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You walk into a dining hall with towering tables of incredible food, just endless resources. And instead of grabbing a plate, you walk right up to the head chef, pull a piece of your own sad, moldy bread out of your pocket,
Oh, man.
and offer it as payment for your meal. You are literally trying to fund an infinite enterprise with your own deliberate starvation.
That is the exact absurdity the text is pointing out. Religion, culture, and our own neuroses have tricked us into believing that we must feed God with our misery.
Like suffering is a currency.
Yes, we treat our suffering as currency. But the source explicitly states that the Super King owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. The resources are beyond measure.
So the universe doesn't need our spare change.
Right? Therefore, your public misery, your self-denial, your poverty, they simply aren't accepted forms of currency. The universe cannot spend your pain.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second. Because culturally, Sacrifice is almost universally revered as a virtue, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We build monuments to people who give until it hurts, who put themselves last. So why does this author take such a hard line in completely rejecting suffering as a mechanism to earn favor?
Well, the text argues that elevating your own suffering to a cosmic currency is actually a manifestation of deep arrogance.
Arrogance. Really?
Yeah, because it implies that the universe is somehow incomplete and that your specific pain is the missing asset required to balance the ledger.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
By obsessing over forensic demand, focusing on what you owe and how much you have to bleed to pay it, you are insulting the very nature of infinite supply.
So you're basically saying, hey, your infinite supply isn't enough. You need my moldy bread.
Exactly. If you stop trying to pay a debt that doesn't exist, your entire frequency changes. You realize the kitchen has always been open. You simply refuse to walk in and eat because you were too busy trying to prove you could starve.
That is wild. But if the universe doesn't demand our suffering, we're left with this massive conceptual void. I mean, if pain isn't the currency, what actually gets the universe's attention?
According to this text, the universe simply wants us to recognize that the paperwork has already been processed.
The paperwork.
Right. The source delivers a definitive legal declaration on this point. It says, I have put the whole world in your hand.
Which sounds like a nice poetic encouragement.
But the author insists we cannot read it as poetry. We must read it structurally. The text defines this in strict legal terms as a literal transfer of title.
The transfer of title, so like a deed.
Yes. The deed to your reality, to your potential, has already been legally transferred into your name.
Okay, the deed is in your name. But if you're still living like you're in the waiting room we talked about earlier,
Then you are experiencing what the text calls a forensic discrepancy.
a forensic discrepancy, that sounds serious.
It is the central tragedy of the human condition, according to this framework. It's the glaring contradiction between what your ledger says and how you actually behave.
Right.
It's having the world in your hand, yet still standing on the proverbial street corner, holding out a tin cup for spare change.
Oh, man.
Your paperwork says you own the entire bank, but your daily actions say you are begging the teller to approve a microloan.
Here's where it gets really interesting. To use like a property metaphor, it's like you've inherited this sprawling, fully staffed estate. The legal deed is sitting in a vault, cleared and authenticated with your name on it.
Yeah.
But instead of walking through the front doors, taking the master bedroom, and actually utilizing the grounds, you pitch a leaky tent on the front lawn.
A leaky tent, exactly.
You huddle out there in the rain, staring at the mansion, hoping the quote-unquote real owner takes pity on you and sends someone out with a bowl of warm soup. You're begging for scraps on a property you already own.
It's absurd when you picture it like that, but the author is challenging the listener to look at their own life and identify where they are pitching that tent.
Yeah.
Are you an owner who is functional operating as a tenant? Are you constantly asking for external permission to utilize assets that are already legally, structurally in your grip?
So to you listening right now, I have to ask, where in your own life are you secretly waiting for a misery refund?
Ooh, that's a good phrase.
Misery refund.
Right. Where are you hoping that some authority figure, a boss, the market, or the universe itself will finally notice how hard you've been shivering in that tent and just hand you a reward?
And the text is brutal here. It said the universe isn't going to reward you for freezing on your own lawn. You just have to stand up and walk into the house.
It's an incredibly empowering but totally unforgiving philosophy.
Very unforgiving, because if the transfer of title is already complete, then your lack of forward momentum is no longer the universe's fault.
It is not a matter of timing, and it is not a test of your patience. It's simply your refusal to accept the transfer and assume the responsibilities of ownership.
So if we accept this, if we accept that the title is in our name and the estate is ours, how do we practically begin operating as the owner? I mean, moving from the conceptual to the mechanical.
Right. How do we use this hardware?
Exactly. And the text provides examples of individuals who figured this out. The first historical audit the author performs is on Moses.
Yes. And the analysis of Moses here strips away the traditional religious framing entirely.
So no burning bush passivity.
None. The text does not view him as a passive conduit who just waited around for miracles to happen. It audits him as the prime example of someone who recognized the transfer of title and stopped asking for permission.
The text specifically contrasts Moses with another ancient figure, Habakkuk. And this is where the waiting room metaphor really gets its historical anchor.
Yeah, so the Book of Habakkuk famously features the prophet receiving a vision and being told, though it tarry, wait for it.
Wait for it, there's that waiting room.
Exactly. The author argues that humanity has become hopelessly stuck in the waiting room of Habakkuk. We have romanticized waiting.
We think waiting is noble.
We believe that if we just wait long enough for our vision to manifest, we're proving our faith. But Moses, on the other hand, represents the exit from that waiting room.
Right, because when Moses was trapped at the Red Sea with an army closing in, he didn't set up a tent and wait for a vision to tarry.
No, he didn't ask the universe for a blueprint.
The narrative actually has the divine voice essentially saying to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Use what is in your hand."
Yes.
He had a physical staff, what this text calls the hardware, and he used it to execute a command. He didn't file a petition for a bridge. He exercised his agency to split the ocean.
He transitioned from the waiting room of Habakkuk to what the text calls the boardroom of the sovereign hand.
The boardroom. I like that.
In a boardroom, you don't wait for visions. You execute strategy based on the assets you hold. Moses operated under the physics of the sovereign now.
The sovereign now.
He understood that power isn't a reward that arrives tomorrow if you're well-behaved today. Power is entirely in the present tense.
Okay, so if Moses is the historical hero of the sovereign, now the text's second example is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Oh, definitely.
The author points out that the quote-unquote wicked actually understand this concept flawlessly.
This is undoubtedly the most provocative claim in the source material.
Yeah.
The text observes that people who operate with pure ruthlessness or total self-interest, the wicked, often achieve massive, undeniable success. And the author asks why.
Why do the bad guys win?
Right. It's because the wicked never sit in the waiting room of Habakkuk. They don't pray for permission. They don't wait for a sign to confirm they are worthy of their ambitions.
They just exercise their hand. They don't suffer from, like, cosmic imposter syndrome.
Precisely. They understand a concept the text calls liquidity. While the hills and the cattle might belong to the super king, the liquidity, the actual flow of resources in the physical world, is yours to manifest. The universe holds the assets, but you hold the checkbook.
And the wicked just write the checks.
The wicked understand that the universe doesn't verify the moral purity of the person signing the check. They simply write the checks and cash them.
So what does this all mean? The author is essentially holding up the wicked as a positive example of how to operate. That's a jarring claim. Is the text seriously arguing that the bad guys are winning simply because they're the only ones properly utilizing the universe's liquidity?
We have to look strictly at the mechanics the author is isolating here. We're keeping our own neutral stance on this, of course, just exploring the text. And the text is not endorsing immorality, harm, or exploitation.
Okay.
It is completely indifferent to the ethics of the situation in order to audit the sheer physics of reality. The author is pointing out that the universe is highly responsive to action, to ownership, and the unabashed exercise of the hardware.
Like a natural law.
Exactly. Gravity doesn't ask if you're a saint or a sinner before it pulls you to the ground. It applies its rule equally. In that exact same way, the sovereign now responds to whoever steps into the boardroom and writes the check.
It operates like an electrical grid. I mean, electricity doesn't possess a moral compass. It doesn't care if it's powering a life-saving machine in a hospital or the electric fence of a corrupt organization.
Right. It simply flows wherever the circuit is closed.
The tragedy, according to this philosophy, is that the righteous intentionally leave their circuits open. They sit in the metaphorical waiting room, staring at the light switch, praying that the universe will reach down and flip it for them to prove they're worthy of the light.
While the wicked just walk right into the room and flip the switch themselves.
Yeah.
The text is urgently pushing the listener to realize that they are allowed to flip the switch. In fact, it's their legal right to do so.
And there's a real urgency to this, right? Because if you stand there staring at the switch, second-guessing your right to flip it, you fall prey to what the source calls the cosmic thief.
Yes, the cosmic thief.
Unpack that for us, because this moves the philosophy from a theoretical mindset shift to like an immediate call to action.
So in the boredom of the sovereign hand, speed of execution is vital. The cosmic thief is not some literal supernatural demon trying to ruin your life.
Right.
It's the natural entropy of hesitation, self-doubt, and procrastination. When you align with the frequency of an idea, when you see an opportunity and the liquidity is available, you have to strike.
So hesitation is essentially an open invitation to be robbed of your own potential.
Exactly. If you pause and say, I'll execute this idea when I have more credentials, or I'll wait until I feel a stronger sense of cosmic permission, your momentum immediately
The
dissipates.
thief steps in.
The thief siphons the energy of that inspiration, and usually someone else, often someone who doesn't care at all about waiting for permission, takes that exact same idea, flips the switch, and runs with it. The liquidity moves to the person willing to claim it.
Wow. So waiting for God or waiting for the universe is so often just a convenient cover story.
It really is.
It's a highly respectable, noble-sounding excuse for cowardly behavior.
Yeah.
We use it to mask the fact that we're terrified of the responsibility that comes with realizing the hardware has already been offloaded to us.
The audit is over. That is the ultimate synthesis of this material. The divine frequency is not one of required suffering, and it is not an endless series of tests designed to measure your patience.
It's a frequency of total, infinite supply that is waiting for your specific active direction.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this right now, this is where the rubber meets the road. Stop asking why other people, even the people you fundamentally disagree with, are out there thriving and manifesting their realities.
Stop looking at their results and feeling resentful.
Look at your own hands. Look at the hardware you have been given. The checkbook is in your grip. The title has been transferred. The liquidity is there, waiting for you to close the circuit.
You have to write the check today. Not tomorrow, not when you finally feel worthy enough, but right now in the sovereign now.
You are making the ultimate psychological shift from being a passenger in your life to being the pilot. You hold the title deed to your reality.
It's incredibly liberating to realize you're no longer a tenant begging a landlord for a better deal.
It is. But let's follow that legal property-owning metaphor all the way to its logical, absolute conclusion before we go.
Oh, man. When you take that metaphor to its end, it carries a massive amount of weight.
It really does. Because if you truly hold the title deed to your reality, and the universe is no longer your landlord, does that mean you are now entirely 100% responsible for the property's upkeep?
Yes.
When you're a renter and a pipe bursts in the middle of the night, you call the landlord. You have someone to blame. You have someone else whose job it is to fix the mess.
But if the universe has handed you the deed and the roof of your life caves in tomorrow,
who do you call when you are the one who owns the building?
that is the true, unavoidable weight of the sovereign hand. Total ownership means total responsibility.
So the next time you find yourself sitting in that metaphorical waiting room, flipping through an old magazine and listening to the hum of those fluorescent lights, take a really good look at the door. You might just realize it was never locked, and you've had the master keys in your pocket the entire time.